In 1949, three railroads launched a train designed not for speed, but for wonder. The California Zephyr crossed 2,500 miles in 38 hours, glass-domed cars turning the Rockies and Sierra Nevada into a living panorama. What some called the last great American train ride. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe, because how this legend began and what America lost when it faded starts with one departure. May 20th, 1949. Three railroads, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, Denver, and Rio Grande Western, and Western Pacific joined forces to unveil a new kind of train. Their partnership was not just a business agreement, it was a statement of intent. The California Zephyr's first official timetable promised a 38-hour journey from Chicago to San Francisco Bay, spanning 2,525 miles and crossing the heart of the continent. Newspapers carried headlines about a rolling panorama and a theater of the West on rails, language echoed in press releases and glossy brochures. The Zephyr's debut was orchestrated as a national event, with the railroads pooling $1.2 million for marketing to cast the train as a moving stage for America's most dramatic landscapes. The promise was clear. This was not travel as a race against time, but as a curated experience, a journey where the land itself became the main attraction. The Tri-Railroad Alliance set out not just to move passengers, but to make each mile a spectacle and every timetable a ticket to wonder. Inside the Bud Company's Philadelphia plant, the vision of panoramic travel took shape in steel and glass. Engineers there pioneered the shot weld process, a seamless method that fused stainless steel without the need for rivets. This innovation allowed for the strength and flexibility needed to carve a 9-foot dome above the car's roofline, a first in American railroading. Each Vista Dome car began as a set of precision-cut panels, hand-assembled on mass-production jigs to guarantee the exact curvature of every rib and window. The Simmons Glass Company supplied the curved panels, each 1 inch thick and carefully sealed to withstand both mountain cold and desert heat. The finished dome offered 24 stadium-style seats in a raised gallery, while the lower level retained the comfort of classic sleeper or coach layouts. 6 sleeper domes and 5 coach domes joined the Zephyr's fleet, each demanding about 15% more maintenance than a standard car. Daily cleaning kept the glass clear, while quarterly inspections checked for stress along the dome's ribs. The upkeep was considerable. But the reward was a space where passengers could look out and feel suspended between sky and landscape. For staff and travelers alike, the dome was more than an engineering feat. It was a window into a new way of seeing America. The first step inside the California Zephyr was like entering a world set apart from the rush outside. Passengers recall the gentle hush that followed the closing of the vestibule door, the way the air seemed tinged with the scent of polished wood and the faintest trace of machine oil. Hands ran along smooth armrests, each one finished in deep amber mahogany veneer, the grain catching the morning light that filtered through the dome above. Fine bone china, rimmed in teal and stamped with the Zephyr's silver-winged insignia, clinked softly in the dining car as coffee was poured. Steel wheels hummed beneath the floorboards, their rhythm steady and hypnotic, a quiet promise of forward motion. Memoirs from those early years speak of the tactile pleasures, the cool, curved glass of the dome, the warmth of sunlight on a cheek, the crisp linen napkins folded at each place setting. Even the smallest details, a brass luggage rack, the satisfying heft of a menu became part of the story. In these recollections, the Zephyr was more than transport. It was a stage for wonder, where the material world invited travelers to slow down, to notice, and to remember. On board the California Zephyr, the Zephyrettes moved through the cars with a quiet confidence that made them more than attendants. They became the soul of the journey. Recruitment posters from 1949 bearing the slogan, "Join the Zephyr, promised adventure and a modern career for women in an era when such opportunities were rare." Training manuals from the Western Pacific and Burlington lines outlined duties that went far beyond pouring coffee or checking tickets. Zephyrettes were expected to guide families to their berths, comfort nervous first-time travelers, and even provide first aid in emergencies. They answered questions about the passing landscape, handed out route guides, and mediated the small dramas of confined travel with patience and tact. Oral histories recorded by the Western Pacific Historical Society capture the lived reality behind the glossy brochures. One former Zephyrette, her voice steady on a tape from the 1990s, described the pride she felt donning her tailored Navy uniform and brass-banded cap. She remembered the way children's faces lit up at her approach, and the gratitude of older passengers who found reassurance in a familiar presence as the train wound through the canyons. The Zephyrette's presence turned the Zephyr from a showpiece of steel and glass into a moving community, where hospitality was as much a part of the experience as the scenery itself. The journey west aboard the California Zephyr begins with a sense of openness, a horizon so wide it seems to swallow the train whole. Across the Illinois and Iowa plains, the land stretches out in muted greens and browns, broken only by the slow arc of a river or the distant silhouette of a grain elevator. This was the territory of the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, which aimed its marketing at Midwestern travelers seeking comfort and reliability, promising a smooth passage across the heartland. The rhythm here is steady, the landscape gentle, and the train's progress feels unhurried, as if inviting passengers to settle in and watch the world unfold. But the geography does not remain passive for long. Beyond Denver, the Denver and Rio Grande Western took over, and the tone of the journey changed. The rails begin to climb, threading through canyons where the walls close in and the air thins. The Denver and Rio Grande Western's advertising leaned into this drama, painting the Rockies as a stage for adventure, a place where the train became both spectator and participant. Passengers, pressed against the dome glass, found themselves suspended above river gorges and winding through tunnels carved from solid stone. Each mile westward brought a new sense of anticipation, the land itself rising up to meet the train. The Zephyr's route was more than a line on a map. It was a carefully choreographed sequence designed to make travelers feel the narrative tension of America's shifting terrain. The Feather River Canyon stands as the Zephyr's most luminous moment, a place where dawn light pours through the dome glass, igniting the river below and tracing silver on the rails. In 2022, a 4K point-of-view project captured this ascent in exquisite detail, the camera lingering as the train wound between granite cliffs and pine shadows flickered over polished steel. For decades, this was the Zephyr's signature act, a moving gallery where every window framed a new masterpiece. The train itself seemed to breathe with the landscape, its rhythm slowing as it climbed, giving passengers time to absorb the grandeur and the hush that followed. Yet beyond the canyon's edge, the world began to shift. The era of three proud railroads faded, replaced by the practical logic of consolidation. Union Pacific assumed operational control, and the Zephyr's identity softened, its name and route preserved, but its daily presence grew quieter. The domes that once sparkled with conversation now ride through stretches of silence, their glass reflecting the memory of a busier age. The train endures, not as a spectacle for the masses, but as a vessel for those who seek out the old route, hoping to catch a glimmer of that original wonder. In the stillness of the modern run, the Zephyr remains, a thread of light through changing times, carrying stories forward even as the crowds grow thin. Inside the workshop, the name Silver Lariat glimmers along a freshly polished panel, a reminder that preservation is as much about patience as it is about skill. In 1999, conservators stripped away decades of wear from the lounge car's mahogany, matching each new veneer to the original grain by hand. Brass fixtures were burnished until they caught the light as they once did rolling west. The Silver Horizon, meanwhile, entered a new era of care in 2021, as laser scanners traced every curve and joint, creating a digital blueprint for future restoration. Each pass of the scanner, each careful replacement of glass or steel, is an act of respect. They are living records shaped by steady hands determined to keep the story moving forward. Every summer, Zephyr Experience Days draw families, rail fans, and curious travelers to the museum platforms, eager to step inside the restored dome cars and glimpse a world where the journey mattered as much as the destination. In 2023, more than 5,000 visitors gathered for these living history events, filling the cars with laughter, questions, and a sense of shared discovery. Volunteers in period uniforms pour coffee and tell stories, bridging decades in a single afternoon. Behind the scenes, a $75,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities in 2018 made it possible to produce educational films and build digital models, opening the Zephyr's story to classrooms and communities far beyond the rails. Each new visitor, each fresh coat of polish, is a quiet act of stewardship, a reminder that the legend endures not just through preservation, but through the people who keep watch year after year. Even now, as high-speed travel shrinks the world, the Zephyr's legacy endures in each preserved car and every memory carried west. We're reminded that wonder isn't found in arrival, but in the journey itself, if we choose to see it. For more stories like this, subscribe and stay curious.